Hey, Dave, I want to come back afterwards and listen to you of why you don't think or why you think teachers and nurses make too much money. Because I think that's an interesting thing you were talking about, but I want to do it after our conversation right now. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah,
No
we'll talk
problem
about
with
that later.
Yeah.
Also, today's episode is brought to you by Queso. If you have any Mexican restaurants out there that are listening, and I know they are, and want to sponsor us,
Who has the best queso?
I thought it was cheese sauce.
What's your favorite queso?
So John brings up John. In your mind, you're from Texas. Where does queso come from?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
I thought it was cheese sauce here.
You call it cheese sauce. Okay.
It was a topping down in Texas before it became a dip in Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
So, but in Texas, they have more of it like a yellow.
Yeah, it's a lot more
queso.
Yeah, Tex-Mex.
Yeah. And so when I think of queso, I think of the white.
You like white
cheese.
queso?
Yeah, I'm not a
queso blanco.
So, but the point
I'm a yellow cheese dip guy. I do like it. I'm often
for a minute. So Dave has lost his ability to talk right now because he said he's a yellow. I have that authority. All right. Well, I'm asking you to unmute, so I can mute you, but I can't unmute you. I'm not going to mute anybody else anymore.
Well, I got a little worked up there, man.
Yeah. And we haven't even mentioned the championship. Way to go, Baylor.
Yes. Sick of Bears, man. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit with Sarah and Dave, and they were like, "Oh, poor Gonzaga." I said, "Poor Gonzaga? Are you kidding me? Baylor's never have a national championship. Come on,
Texas
here you
has
go."
only had 2 now.
Oh,
is this their first win ever?
This is their first national championship, Baylor Bears.
And the state of Texas, I think, has only won 2 out of like all the colleges or all the universities that we have. I think we've only won 2,
which is insane in terms of Texas sports. Yeah. But Texas is a football state, so
that's true.
We'll reign it this one year anyway. Congratulations, Emma Moore. I mean,
the thing about the game is that Baylor took a 9-point lead within the first minute, and they never lost that 9-point lead. So you kind of were cheering for Gonzaga just to make it a more interesting game to watch. But man, that was a blowout, big time.
They came to win.
It was fun for the Baylor fans and all of my Baylor Facebook friends and fellow alums. It's a good time for us. But it's fun.
Celebrate with you.
Guys, I have a problem that I need your all's help with. Sunday morning, I don't know if you all have this problem in your house, but Sunday morning, my wife, she bought me a golden idol. And I don't know if I'm supposed to worship it. And so do you all face paganism in your own household? And what do you do with it? Do you worship it? Do you join with what do you do when there's paganism in the household?
I am just completely sorry. This has already gone through.
If it was in the shape of a bull, we'd have some more issues, but I think you're going to be okay with the bunny.
Well, the bunny about
I don't know if you know
fertility.
The song,
is she wanting another baby?
But
that idol,
the bunny. Ooh, I ate the bunny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now the bull in Moses's day. Do you think it was white chocolate or milk chocolate?
Yeah.
It was definitely a dark chocolate.
Was it dark chocolate?
Yeah. They didn't know how to filter it all out. They just kind of smashed the cocoa in it and went with it. Yeah. And that's why the water was bitter.
There you go.
Bible. I love it.
Bible to prove the Bible.
This is the most educational YouTube video ever. And I'm kind of thinking, we're being kind of funny and people are like, oh, I'm really going to tune into this one. This is going to be great. But I'm pretty sure we've already offended all white cheese dip eaters, teachers. Who was the other group? Nurses, teachers, Gonzaga fans. I don't know if we have any of those around here, but we're doing well. We're batting 1,000.
Yeah,
all right, so
may need to title this "Skip to Minute Whatever."
Oh. No, so it is.
Float it and have it start at the minute 3 or something. Yeah,
it is tongue in cheek. Deborah did not bring me a pagan thing, but I do want to talk about it's Easter. Every year, it makes some people nervous, some Christians nervous. Halloween makes Christians nervous. Some of them, and I wanted to talk, have a conversation about kind of this mix of Christianity and what some people would consider paganism. Did you all do things like Easter egg hunts and stuff growing up?
Yeah.
And so let's say someone came to you, hypothetically, because this does happen to me, and they're like, they just feel very bad. Like they're like, Christians shouldn't have anything to do with bunnies, eggs. They watch some YouTube videos and hear about Ishtar and all that stuff. But before kind of we get to answering it, I do want to say, I don't make fun of people who go through that, because I love someone who's trying to follow the Lord seriously. And even if I come to a different conclusion, sometimes I think I know enough people who have faced those issues seriously, and they're not quite sure what to do with it. And they kind of feel like, are we losing our way if we have Easter egg hunts, and like at Halloween, we dress up? So like, what do we do just practically for the Christian? How can we land in like a good place? That are we honoring God by doing those sorts of things, like an Easter egg hunt?
Yeah, I'd say we are.
All right.
Because it's not so much any kind of symbolism in the Easter egg hunt that cannot honor God, but it is absolutely, like when the church puts it on, the baskets, whatever we did this year, allows that community to say, hey, this is what's important. And so we do this Easter egg hunt to put us together, to allow us to enjoy fellowship, to allow the kids to have a story that's kind of narrated, sure, around some Easter egg hunt, but it's actually narrated around the resurrection of Jesus. That's what we're coming to celebrate. That's what we're here for. And that's your Christmas story. That's your Halloween story. That's whatever is going to be there. Is that, man, we're still centered around a community that loves and inspires to be like Jesus. And so I can remember the first time that I ran kind of into that same teaching, and I was in college, and it was like super eye-opening. Like, what? I never thought about this. I never heard about this, and what's going on and what's happening. And there was kind of that moment of like, am I honoring God in this celebrating Easter? And it had to take a little bit to just kind of dive into it a little more, and then also just kind of seek out like this. There's just, I can't hold this kind of teaching of what kind of paganism, what kind of fertility, whatever those kind of things were, to be just something that would just wash over the whole intent of Christians around the world who celebrate Easter in a way that honors God, to be like, well, no, they're actually not. And I'm like, no. That's so judgmental of me to think that because of what this church does to honor Christ in their community is not because I have this little piece of history here that I want to hold over their head and act like they haven't paid attention to it enough to be like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. So I can't hold them responsible for my expectations. I can't hold them responsible for my expectations of what I think about Easter, instead of allowing them to be like, no, you go celebrate, because that's what Christ wants us to do. Or that's what I believe Christ wants us to do, is celebrate with the community.
It's awesome. What about you, Dave?
I just love that you're asking these questions to get us to talk so you can eat your bunny.
Thank you.
I mean,
yeah. Pagan bunny. I ate my idol. Woo!
I'm gonna get Dave and John to talk so I can finish my chocolate bunny.
That's a good idol.
Let's call Sarah and ask for salt water to be delivered to Ryland right now.
Yeah, I didn't have any of those that kind of background of let's not celebrate Halloween, Easter, Christmas, with Santa Claus and a bunny and costumes. I mean, my church growing up did, and the costume was supposed to be kind of more biblical costumes, or like more positive characters. They didn't want a lot of villains showing up to the church thing, which was fine. I get that, but yeah, I agree with John. I'm thinking, God is bigger than any pagan holiday. And so I just kind of fall back onto the sovereignty of God. Like, he can handle it.
Alvinist.
Like he's powerful enough to bring his son back to life. I think he's okay with us fighting some plastic eggs with candy in it with the kids and having a good time.
That's good.
Oh.
Yeah. So I would encourage, my response usually is one, that is kind of internet pop theology. That's not always helpful. Even though I sincerely appreciate people trying to think out how they live out their faith. The other side of it is, for me, like, if Jesus has risen from the grave and it's about making new creation, can we take things that were once intended for maybe evil and convert them and make them for something new and good? And so I'm all about taking things that were once used for, and as Christians, let's reclaim stuff even if it's pagan, and let's make it Christian. In a sense.
Isn't that Genesis 50:20, right? I think it is.
First drop.
But just, and I may be wrong on that, but just I can remember a friend saying the 50-20 rule, and that's Joseph talking to his brothers, like, you intended this for harm and evil, but God has made this be something that protects, or something. I forget what the actual thing is. You can look it up. But it's Joseph talking to his brothers and just be like, this whole thing you just meant to harm and make it so evil. Sell me to Egypt. Mm-hmm. And it has become a place where it's going to bless the rest of our family. So
the other side of it that I'll say to people when they do have that question is, if there is like Paul talks about like weaker and stronger Christians, and we don't like the word weak. It has a kind of a bad connotation in 2021, but I want to welcome the weaker brother or the weaker sister in that area. And if it's like really bothering your conscience, I may not agree with you, but I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm going to honor you in your household to kind of do what you feel is right for your family, and kind of leave it there, and then kind of ask you to just reconsider. Because when does it stop? Like, the days of the week are off God's. Like, Thursday is Thor's Day. Like, that stuff is like, when do you actually,
the months, the calendar or something?
Yeah, like at some point we have to say there's no way that we can get rid of that completely, and so let's reclaim some of those things. And like on the Halloween one, my understanding was it's not it didn't start with like a Satanism thing as much as it started with Christians dressing up as like ghouls and goblins, making fun of the darkness because there's no power over them, so they're like taunting. Is a lot of more of where that comes from. And so I think that's helpful. I think we can leave that there. I do get that almost every year.
Yeah, I was going to say, just right on the reverse side, especially for a restoration group, is the same thing like Lent. Like, it provides this very great spiritual connection, something physical that ashes are laid on. Ash Wednesday is what I'm really saying. Lent and Ash Wednesday, those things that we act like, no, we can't participate in those, While at the same time, we're reimagining that narrative for a restoration restoration church to allow ourselves, no, this is something absolutely to bring us closer to God, not in a, it's just a Catholic sense, but no, what allows your body, your soul to connect there. And I love the physical touch of the ashes that brings it into that one moment. But, it's another thing that, like, reclaiming that as a church and as people who are celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and not just leaving it out as like, I got to be hands off, because that's just not my practice.
No. Were you going to say something, Dave?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was also on what I'm saying is the other side. So I don't know how many other sides we have, but
4 or 5.
I think if you're not talking about Jesus' resurrection to your kids at all, and all you're doing is completely consumed with the Easter basket and eggs and candy. Yeah. So like, there's tons of easy resources that you can read out of kind of children's Bibles, the story, or the visual Bible of the story, or just open up your Bible and read, any of the end of any of the Gospels of the resurrection accounts, So if, like, I think we need to do that too, and make sure that our kids are familiar with, this is the holiday that we're celebrating Jesus coming back to life, Mm-hmm. And like, we can easily let that slip away too, because we're so busy with the 6 different egg hunts you're trying to get your kids to,
No, and like what John was saying about the church calendar of like Lent is kind of this culmination of a season that leads up to Easter. And we're in Eastertide right now, which lasts, I think, for 50 days. I think it's going to go till May something or other. But Easter is a whole season. And sometimes in our non-denominational churches, we've rejected some things because they just appeared Roman Catholic. And I don't think that's always a healthy thing. Like, for instance, I love, it would cause more ruckus here than it would be worth, but I love churches that have like water fonts where people will touch the water and sign themselves. It's not anything magical. Every time they walk in, they're reminding themselves of their baptism is what they're doing. They're reminding themselves. And so that's why they have the water. It's not a mystical thing. It's, when I touch that water, I'm going to remind myself of how, entering into Christ. And you take communion every time. This idea of thinking about the cross of Christ, and you leave thinking, like, it tells the whole story of God's work in the liturgy. And sometimes we lose that. Good thoughts. I think, well, I'm going to keep doing Easter egg hunts then, because you all have convince me.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And those Easter bunnies show up every year.
Every year. No, kids should have fun. Kids should have a lot of fun. These are good. Give your kids good memories. The other thing I want to talk about was kind of my last point from Sunday from Matthew 28:8 that I didn't have. I didn't want to take a whole lot of time with. I spent mostly with the first portion, but the angel's call to say, let me look at, come see the place where he was lying. And that invitation to examine the evidence, examine like Jesus's story, to take the time and really come see for yourself. I wanted to ask you all, did you all ever have moments, maybe as you come to faith, of like, oh, these were the things that I really needed to examine? And maybe John, as a follow-up, maybe you could say, like, what are the things you see youth today really kind of examining, or like some of the roadblocks when it comes to like just learning the story of Jesus?
Yeah. So coming to the examine part, I mean, yeah, exactly. Luke 24 tells the same story of just, they don't get the angel's invitation, but you got Peter and John who hear what happens and they just rush off and run to the tomb to see, like, for themselves, like what has happened and what's going on. And I've always kind of had a little bit of that same, I don't know, feeling of just that seeing is believing. And we don't get the opportunity to run to the tomb. When we preach the resurrection of Jesus, we have to paint the picture of the tomb being empty for people. We have to allow them to, one, see it in their minds, allow them to believe it. Well, hey, what is happening? To where almost it, becomes backwards. We're now believing is seeing. I'm believing in an empty tomb, and man, I'm able to see that it is there. I get this invitation from an angel that says, man, come check it out. And so with students, I always have a preview, I guess, or where I want them to check out is just, what is that story of Jesus as you're learning the stories of Jesus that just make them credible to you. And I think a lot of people have kind of heard me kind of preach from that Acts 2, Jesus made credible by wonders, miracles, and signs, and just getting them trying to connect with what's one story that says, man, Jesus did that. I want to check him out some more. Jesus would hold a leper. Jesus would do this. I got to figure out something else to see it. To get to the last part of your question about the roadblocks, I mean, there's just so much that I think they experience.
What are the top 20?
Through school, yeah, top 20. Through school, that really just kind of sits and puts them in an aspect of like, what? And I think the hardest part of that is, as a youth minister, is allowing them to really explore those questions and giving them, even in church or even in the youth group, a safe space to kind of say, yeah, this is just why I'm doubting. This is just why I'm not feeling like I can clothe myself in baptism yet, or this is the moment that I'm still trying to experience. And so that's what, even as we talk about what our discipleship process and seeing them being introduced to Jesus and introduced to what Jesus is calling them to becomes more important for me as a youth minister for a student than, hey, I need to get you on the discipleship process. That the follow me absolutely was something for those disciples who are however old and in that timeline, and understanding a rabbi calling them and understanding that culture. To our teenagers and youth now, that's not the same culture. But Jesus is still saying, hey, follow me. And I'm trying to say just one story, one piece, what allows you to continue to say, hey, I need to check this out a little bit more.
That's good. What about you, Dave?
Yeah.
Did you experience any roadblocks?
Probably, but I forgot the question.
Give the answer you want. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So Dale Allison has a new book on the resurrection, and it's chapter 1. He gives 9 different kind of readings, or 9 different like historical perspectives of what might have happened. And it was fascinating to me because I'd probably heard of 3 of them, but one of them is this idea that the disciples just made it up. Like, they were hallucinating when they saw Jesus appearing. And so they just made up this whole like, well, of course he was resurrected and the tomb's empty, and so, which doesn't make sense if Matthew wrote stuff like, hey, and the angel said, come check it out, go look, like, this is where you put him. He's not here, like point 1, he's not here.
Has mass hallucination ever happened?
Yeah, well, no. I don't know.
It hasn't.
But and also the whole, evidently there were grave robbers,
right.
to me, I mean, maybe they've always been looting and robbing graves, but it just seems odd. Like, what are you going to get out of this? Like, you're going to take a body, what for? What benefit is it to steal all that kind of stuff? But anyway, all that to be said, like, it seems like we've got some flex here to where there is room for our doubts and our minds and our questions. Mm-hmm. and the examining process is not just snap your fingers and now you got it. It's like Thomas. You're like, whoa, bro. Let me see your hands here. I want to touch those scars. Let me feel it. Let me touch it. And I think that's okay. Like, we need to have some room for that too, to say, the resurrection makes absolutely zero sense. And yet Sunday, Easter Sunday, where we celebrate Jesus coming back to life, it is kind of the culmination, the apex of our faith. Like, it's a super big deal. I mean, it's it. So the process of us exploring and spending time with it and thinking about it and praying through it and studying, I think that's a good thing. I think that strengthens our faith, but it allows us to take a moment to say, you know what? I can't prove it. I can look at all the facts. I can look at the text the best I can, but I can't really prove it because my God is the one that did it. There's nothing that I can do to figure it out so that I could recreate it and do it myself. It's clearly just the power of God.
Yeah, I think the roadblocks I've seen people experience the most are usually when it comes to kind of straw man arguments of science in the Bible. And usually the people who make positions are sometimes the worst people to make their position on both sides. Like, Twitter's not a good place for that kind of conversation. Those are nuanced conversations. And like, here in America, we often argue about like a 6-day literal creation, and that's just not a thing in other parts of the world. And there needs to be more nuance. But what's happening is, like, we're arguing sometimes about multiple things, because like someone's arguing about, and it's like we're missing people in the dark. Like, we're hitting each other because one person is arguing about the credibility of the Bible, and another person is arguing about like the literal component of the Bible, and they're just like missing each other when they're asking completely two different questions. Like, literal and authoritative and biblical are three different, varied meanings. So that's one thing of like, there is room. Like, I'm not a young earth creationist. I'm not a sixth earth creationist person. I think Genesis 1 and 2 are narrative. I think it could have been. I kind of remain agnostic, but I don't think the Bible and modern science is incompatible. So that's one thing. The other thing I see is kind of a moral aspect of one, the church sometimes has done an awful job with this, of being just mean to people on the moral issues, maybe from a well-meaning place of, that's not the way God wants us to live. But on the other hand, just being cruel and mean to people who don't share the same sense of ethos as we do. And so I see sometimes that as a roadblock of kind of the moral. If you do begin to follow Christ, he's going to have complete say over your life, your sexual ethic, your tongue, the way you spend your money. And so part of being a follower of Christ is he wants you to, what'd you say?
It's what you drink.
What you drink, what you eat, like, he has an opinion about those stuff. And Christians have not always done a good job of explaining how those give you Jesus's will for us, gives us life. It's not a draining thing. It's a life-giving thing. It's the best way to live. But I see that as a roadblock for people. And I apologize. I don't know why I'd apologize, but I do on behalf of the church. Anybody who's watching and has had a bad experience of a Christian not being kind over sincere questions, whether it's doubt, moral, science, and Christians sometimes need to have the ability also to say, I don't know, and to kind of stay in their lane. Like, there's some things we don't know, like just what Dave said, right? And so the only thing, go ahead.
The kind, gentle, humble people are not going to have a lot of Twitter followers, Is
that my problem? That's my problem.
I mean, like you're saying, like someone posted something like something real simple, real humble, and they were like, listen, this is, the bots are not going to pick up on this, and it was something just like you say something normal that just kind of encouraging and no one's going to like it or follow it. You say something controversial and then you get all these people commenting and fighting about it, and then the bots are kind of saying, oh, this is getting attention. Let's get it to get more attention and it's elevated, and it's just like, no, let's just, if nothing else, social media has taught us that, the way we present ourselves is important. Yes. But also we need some more gentleness and humbleness, especially among believers, Yeah.
I think maybe a good goal for us as resurrection people is when we interact with people who we might not always see eye to eye, is we don't ever want them to feel like we've owned them. Like, man, I own that conversation, or like mic drops of like, no, that there needs to be like graciousness. Jesus didn't do that with people, like his people who were inquisitive about him. He was always very kind to people who were generally inquisitive and didn't have all the, like Thomas, kind of that process. And so I think that's the resurrection posture I want to take, is less owning and more kindness.
Yeah. How can we like it might be Toby Mac or something. How do we speak life into people and the conversation and the questions and the dialogue, and that's resurrection people,
Yeah.
We want to help bring life to people because of the life that God has blessed us and graciously given us. So
yeah. Well, we've been going a while. Anything else that we need to talk on? Have we answered all the world's questions?
I think we got it all.
We did it.
Teachers are the greatest heroes right now. So yeah.
As a sideline, now that nobody's probably watching, Dave did not say that before. I want to be very clear. Dave is very kind towards nurses and teachers. I was just giving him.
I forgot the nurses. I didn't hear that part. I heard the teachers. Yeah. I was like,
nurses and teachers make too much money.
We love teachers.
I learned that there was a guy I used to listen to. I think it was he dressed up in characters, but he would do fake interviews. And he would ask questions like that. He's like, "What do you mean earlier when you said that you never think a woman could be president?" And I always thought that was a good way to get people. Mic drops. Those are mic drops.
Those are something. Yeah. Like, just like, let me shock them in. Now they're more comfortable.
Now they'll share this out.
Yeah.
Well, Little Rock Church, we love you so much. Happy Easter. John, you're going to be preaching this week. Are you ready?
I am. Well, I got to go through it a few times, but yeah, I think we're right there. So
looking forward to it. Call us if y'all need anything, and we will see y'all Sunday.